You are listening to the Love and Confidence Podcast, episode number 112. Welcome to the Love and Confidence Podcast. If you're a woman who wants to feel more irresistible, have more fun, and create deeper and more authentic connections, this podcast is for you. I am your host, certified life coach Lærke Nielsen, and I help you become the best and most confident version of yourself so you can attract the love life you desire. Let's get started. Hey there, are you dating and not getting much success? And if so, why do you think that is? Are you more the kind of woman who thinks that you are not good enough and there are so many other women that are prettier and more interesting than you? Or are you more the kind of woman who thinks that there are no good men out there and there's no one that I find interesting or feel attracted to? If you are the last one, then this episode is for you. This is when you experience that nobody ticks the boxes for you. Even after 50 dates, you still haven't met anyone that you wanted to move forward with. You only have first dates with everyone, because then you decide to not see them again because he wasn't interesting and there was no chemistry. If this is the situation after a month and even years of dating and meeting maybe 50 to 100 men, then it's time to ask yourself what is really going on and what do you need to change to get a different result. Things are not always what they seem to be on the surface. It would be easy to say that someone who's very critical towards men, they are judgmental, entitled, arrogant, very hard to please, unflexible, and not able to compromise just a little bit. She requires perfection and she will always find something to criticize in a man. She's never going to be happy. That would be the easy thing to say when you look at it from the outside. But is that really the truth? And you can of course figure out that there are more layers to it when I express it like that. And this is what I will go into in this episode. The reasons why you keep thinking that nobody fits your criteria and they all seem boring and uninteresting. So before we get started, I just want to emphasize that I think it's really important to be discerning and not like everyone. You need to have an idea of what kind of person you're compatible with and the values that are important to you. And it's not a problem if you can only match with 5 in 100 men in the dating apps and you don't particularly fancy the other 95. But when you then start meeting them and going on dates, at some point, if you keep discarding them one after the other and only have first dates, and you meet, let's say, over 50 guys that you don't want a second date with, you have to ask yourself if there's anything you could be doing differently that will get you a better result. I always think you should evaluate and learn as you go along, and therefore the miss rate, the number of bad dates, should go down as you become better and better at dating, and you become better at selecting the right matches and recognizing the red flags. And also, the number of second, third, and fourth dates should increase with time, because you are learning and adjusting on the journey, and you are becoming better at dating. But if that is not the case and you still only have first dates with everyone you meet and you've met over 50, then it's time to take a look at yourself and what's really going on and how you can change the process. We can make a parallel to the situation where you are looking for a job, for instance. You're looking for a new job and you've been on, let's say, 57 job interviews. And every single time you have come to realize after the interview that the job wasn't interesting. And you decided that you would withdraw your application if they call you and invite you for a second interview. You thought that the job was for you, but after this first interview, you realize it isn't really. So what would be your thoughts about that? Is this just bad luck and because there are no good jobs out there? Or is it something that you are doing? Could you be applying for the wrong jobs to begin with, and then end up in way too many irrelevant interviews? Or could you be wrong about the job? The job might actually be more interesting than you thought, but you just didn't get the right or enough information. Or could something inside you be blocking the process so that your brain always finds something it doesn't like about the job and rejects the job because you have a deep fear of ending up in a job that will bore you or where you don't feel adequately qualified and then you will feel not good enough? So I want to illustrate this scenario by sharing a client story that is also a celebration. And we will call this client Claire. Claire had been dating on and off for a while when she came to me, but she only had first dates with everyone. Often the guys wanted to see her again, but she was the one who said no, and a few times she just never heard from them, most likely because they sensed she wasn't interested. When she came to me, she had been on way over 50 dates in the last couple of years, and it was only first dates. And one of the main reasons she wasn't interested in moving forward with dating the guys was that she didn't feel attracted on the first date. But there were also other reasons. She just didn't feel that they had the right criteria and that they were interesting. And so we worked on her mindset about how it's actually not about giving the guy a chance, but giving herself a chance if she would postpone the decision on whether he's interesting or not until she had met him a few times. As things can actually change when we get to know someone. Also, how attracted we feel to someone is something that can change with time as we get to develop the connection. So going on more than one date would be a way for her to get more data and make her decision on a more informed basis. So it wasn't about trying to like someone that she didn't like. Of course, we get to have the feelings we have, but it was just to have a more clear idea of the other person so that she didn't miss out on a potentially good match, and also so that she knew exactly why she didn't want to continue dating someone when that was the case. And as we continued the work, what became apparent, and that I believe is the case for many women who are very selective, is that beneath the critical evaluation, there was in reality a fear. She was afraid that if she went on maybe 5 to 7 dates with someone, and she had a feeling from the beginning that he wasn't the one for her, but she just wanted to try it out, that then she would start to get attached to him and to like him, even if she didn't feel that he was the one for her. She would build some level of attachment, and it would be difficult and painful when she had to end it. And there would be a risk that she would settle with someone that wasn't the right match for her, that she would have the choice between either going through a painful break or settling with someone who wasn't who she wanted to share her life with. And so she would rather end it early on and move on. But the problem is that when she ended it early, well, she could have easily missed out on some good matches because she only had a very superficial knowledge of them. And that would just confirm her belief that it's very difficult to meet someone. And due to the confirmation bias that we all have in our brain, this would make her even more aware of everyone's flaws and be even more selective and believe less and less in success. And so, in reality, the real pain point to work on for her was the fear of getting early attached and not so much being selective. So, I want to say here that after 5 to 7 dates, you have not committed yourself to a long term relationship with anyone. You are still discovering a man. And if you stay connected to the rest of your life, everything outside of dating, you keep seeing your friends and doing what lights you up, and you only go on a date with this man every 7 to 10 days, you can develop your connection in a pace that makes it less likely that you become overly attached at a time where you barely even know if he's a good match or not. And what we also talked about was that if it should happen, if she did become attached and the guy didn't want her at the end, or she would realize that she didn't want him and therefore have to go through the pain of a mini breakup, so to speak, then there are tools for that too. In fact, being in the course of a coaching package, that is an ideal time to test the waters for that, because you have someone to catch you when you fall, and you have someone to support you in moving on. Anyways, there was a critical point in Claire's dating journey where she decided to overrule her instinctive negative thinking and go ahead with a new strategy that we put together with her. Go on dates that she didn't necessarily feel super excited about. And that's when she met someone that she now, as I'm recording this, is in the early stages of a relationship with. Allowing herself to postpone the moment where she made the final decision about someone, keeping the door slightly open for a little bit longer. That was exactly what allowed her to find love. So I am, of course, super happy for her, and I think this is a powerful transformation when we discover that the way we've been thinking about things and the painful narratives that we have running in our brain for a long time, that they were actually wrong. And we open up to seeing things in a different way, then we can create success in a very short time. So now I'm going to give you the key points here that you can take with you if you find yourself to be very critical towards basically every man you meet on a date. Number 1, you get to be just as selective as you want. Nobody can push you to like someone or feel attracted to someone that you don't really fancy. But you have nothing to lose by going on 3 dates before you make a final decision about a man. And we assume here that he's a kind person who treats you well and invites you on dates. Otherwise, it's not interesting. You use the time on the dates to make observations, notice them, and collect data, so to speak. And even if you're negative from the beginning, and most of what you discover doesn't change your opinion about a man, you can still benefit from doing 3 dates because you will have more data to base your decision on. You will learn more about what you like and don't like in a man. You will practice your dating skills, and you will not miss out on a good match because sometimes it does actually happen that attraction builds over time. And so during those 3 dates, you could make it a challenge to find a minimum of 3 things you like about his personality and his character. Not the way he looks or his job, but him as a person. And if you decide to not move forward after 3 dates, then write down a very clear reason for that. Look at it and ask yourself if you think this is a good reason. Key point number 2 is something I only touched on briefly in the story about Claire, and that is that our brain has a confirmation bias. So this is the tendency that if we believe something, we will always be able to find evidence to support our belief. So if you have experienced for a while that dating is difficult, or the men that you meet through the dating apps are boring, you will much faster find evidence and signs that this is true, and that will reinforce your belief. And you will more easily discard someone that could be a good match. So you want to try to identify what your beliefs are and really try to challenge them, or even just decide on purpose to find evidence for the opposite. Try to get a more nuanced view on men and dating. Open up to being wrong, at least sometimes. So if you believe dating is hard and there are practically no men that interest you, then try to nuance that by thinking, for instance, that there are interesting men you just haven't met yet. Or there are both interesting and less interesting men, and you are going to find something interesting in all of them. Not saying that you will like them all, but it could be a fun challenge to try to find minimum 1 interesting thing about all your dates. And then there's also the perspective that when you think they all are boring, you don't open up, you don't share a lot about yourself, you don't shine as much, and you don't ask engaging questions. And guess what? That actually makes you less interesting. Key point number 3 is if you find yourself to be very critical towards men, then try to ask yourself if you are really protecting yourself against something. Is it in reality a fear that lies behind the selectiveness? It could be a fear of settling, or it could be a fear of not being enough. Fear of settling can keep you single for years because your brain will always be able to find something that is wrong about a man that you're dating. Nobody is a perfect unicorn. Humans have flaws. And we can easily convince ourselves that it's better to be single if he's not the perfect match for you. But the question you want to ask yourself is not so much if you guys are a perfect match from the beginning, but if you think you can create a relationship together. A relationship doesn't just happen, it's something you create with your partner. Do you share values? Do you want the same in life? Do you feel good in his company? Can you be yourself? Can you have a difficult conversation? Can you disagree on things? Does he listen? Does he show genuine interest? And so on. All this is a million times more important than his height or diploma or how much hair he's got. If you followed me for a while, you know my opinion about instant attraction. I highly recommend to not trust your level of early attraction too much. It is not a sign that he is the one just because you feel the sparks on the first date. It takes much more than that to build a relationship, and sparks can happen later when you develop the connection. So never use that as a reason why you don't want a second date. So I hope that if you are sitting out there and feeling hopeless because there are no good men available and you've been on 76 dates without meeting someone you like, I hope that you now have an idea of how to progress. Don't believe your brain when it tells you there's no one out there for you. Rather, ask yourself why you've become so good at finding the flaws. What are you protecting yourself against? And if you want my support in cracking that code, you know where to find me. There's no common recipe that fits everyone, and that's why it's so powerful to have a coach who can ask you the right questions and dig a layer deeper than what you can yourself to identify exactly what's going on and then treat the root cause of your problem. And all this, of course, so you can meet someone who is much better than what you had hoped for. All you have to do to get started is book a call on the link in the show notes. Thank you for listening all the way to the end, and don't forget, no matter if you are single or not, you are loved, you are worthy, and you are important in this world. Have a wonderful week. If you like what you're hearing on this podcast and you want to get support from a coach on your love journey, I invite you to book a free consult call with me. You will find the link in the show notes. And also, don't forget to subscribe, and I would love it if you would rate and review this podcast, and then you'll also help other women find it.